Welcome to the tutorial series from ManoMotion. In this video, we're going to explore the onboarding process of an application that features hand tracking. By user onboarding, we're referring to the process that gives users the appropriate information, skills, and behavior in order for them to use your app effectively. There's a lot of cross-disciplinary research which indicates that the first impression of an app is key to the adoption of it. Therefore, our goal in the onboarding session is to showcase the hand tracking feature in the most useful way. Once again, our setup is primarily aimed to mobile AR experiences, but the principles are generalized for other media as well. For the purpose of this session, I've split the onboarding process into two distinct parts. Those are the detection part and the interaction part. We're going to start off with the detection part since it's the basis of the hand tracking feature. We touched on this subject on a previous video when we discussed how to provide feedback by hand visualizations. We're going to expand on this notion and, of course, build an example out of it. Our goal in the hand detection step is to inform the user that this app is capable of tracking their hands and that there are a set of rules and conditions that the user needs to keep in mind in order for the detection to be consistent. The first chance for informing a user about the hand tracking capability is when requesting camera access during the initial setup of the app. This is a one-time step and it's often overlooked since it comprises mostly of text information. Though you should absolutely do this, you should not depend on the session to be the sole source of information. What we are going to do instead is to empower the hand tracking capability by adapting the initial part of the application. More specifically, we're going to use visual information that will capture the user's attention to an action. The action is for a user to place their hand in front of the phone's rear camera. I have prepared some UI examples that can serve as an example of your visual onboarding process. As with the rest of the assets and the project itself, I will be sharing with you via a repo in the description. All the four examples that you see target the same call to action by a combination of text and visuals. The final take on your UI should be in line with the aesthetics of your app. However, the key takeaway here is to clearly indicate where the hand should be placed. This will prevent users from misinterpreting the distance from the camera, and instead it will guide them to properly position their hand there. If your application is focused around a specific hand pose, such as pinch or the grab family, feel free to incorporate some sort of visual guidance for the hand pose as well, similar to the fourth example that you see here. With the visuals at check, we're going to create a small example and a validation script that ensures that the user has followed the instructions correctly. I've started a new project and I've imported the latest SDK Community Edition package. I made a new scene and drag and dropped in the three prefabs that I end up using most of the time. Those are the ManoMotion Manager, the ManoMotion Canvas, and the Mano Visualization. Since Mano Visualization is going to display both the camera feed and the bottom box of my hand, I'm all set with the visualization of hand tracking. What I'm going to do next is to create a section for UI instructions that I'm going to display. The setup is very simple, with a sprite indicating the area we talked about, and a text that provides additional information. Of course, I want to keep the user informed at all times, so I'm going to provide feedback via a validation script I'm going to check right now. This is a small script that will act as an independent instruction, but for a bigger project, I strongly recommend making an abstract class similar to the one we're offering in the example scripts. The logic of this instruction is to subscribe to the event fired when a new frame is processed by ManoMotion Manager and check if two conditions are met. Those two conditions are about the classification of the currently detected hand and the width of the bounding box. If the currently detected Mano class is anything else other than no hand, it means that the ManoMotion is detecting a hand. Moreover, if the bounding box width is not covering the entire width of the frame, then the hand is placed further in distance from the physical device. To keep things under control, I'm going to keep track of these conditions to be true for roughly 2 seconds. At the same time, I'm providing feedback of the progress by filling in a radial image. When those 2 seconds of detection has passed, I'm going to give haptic feedback by vibrating the phone. This is a great starting point for your hand tracking onboarding session, Some of the things that you should consider adding would be a skip and a replay option in order to give your users the freedom of choice. Remember that this is the raw information of the hand detection. If you feel that you need to smooth things out, I highly recommend Unity's linear interpolation method and of course a median filter. I will be leaving a link for both methods in the description. With the general tracking in place, we're ready to move to the interaction part of the onboarding session. On this topic, I recommend a different approach. In a mobile AR app, users might give you the first 10 seconds of their attention when the app starts, and that's a very big maybe. With this in mind, I highly recommend not to rush both the tracking and interaction information in that session. Instead, I'm a big advocate of item info when it comes to augmented reality. What I mean by on-item info are cues, affordances, or simply visual instructions that communicate how the item can be interacted with. To illustrate this in a 3D example, I have created an interactable 3D cube that a user can click to interact with. The available interaction is by performing the click trigger gesture, and the interaction onboarding is implemented by offering the guide on top of the object. To achieve this result, I have created an object with a sprite renderer that serves the visualization item. I used the animator to swap the sprite of the sprite renderer with the icons that show the hand poses one must form to perform the click trigger gesture. Of course, some text is always helpful, so I've included a 3D text to prompt the user to interact with this cube. The important part in this simple example is the mental connection of the hand motion and the name of this action. By using cues like this, you can teach people what click means in your app. Once again, keep it simple and avoid teaching too many things at the same time. To keep things tidy, I have created a validation script that will check the progress of the user towards the interaction and of course provide feedback. My approach this time is to check for the currently detected trigger gesture and respond by changing the color of the cube. When a user has performed this interaction 3 times, it's time to hide the visual information so our UI looks nice and clean. Time for the creative challenge of this video. Now that you have access to a Unity project with an onboarding experience, what interactable items would you bring in instead? Feel free to post your creations on our Discord server. Thank you for watching.